Hello, this is Angela Anderson. In this video I'm going to be doing a black and white trees in a grayscale, and in a separate video I'll be showing you how to add a pop of color to one of the trees just for some added interest. So this is the first part, and let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is use titanium white and spray down my canvas just a little bit. I've got a 12 by 16 inch canvas panel here. The water will just help the dry canvas absorb the paint a little bit easier. I'm going to lay out some white nice and quickly, then pick up a little bit of black, mix up some gray, and work that in around the edges of my white. Blend it quickly. We're going to do like a vignette, so it'll be darker around the edges and lighter in the middle. Pick up a little bit more white, and I'll let my brush strokes show. So just kind of do some brush strokes in different directions. I sort of do X strokes, but you can do whatever works for you. I'm trying to kind of keep the general flow sort of horizontal. Keep the darker color around the outside edges and let that inner area stay fairly close to white. We're going to do just like a row of trees here, so nothing too fancy, and it's okay if your brush strokes show in your background. You might need 2 coats if you're using acrylic craft paints. I'm using heavy body acrylics, but I'll also be using some golden fluid acrylics today as well. So you will want a more fluid paint for this. If you're using your heavy body and you have a flow medium, you can just add that to your paints to help them flow a little bit easier for this. That looks good. Now when I get down toward the bottom horizon here, I'm going to make my horizon line about 1/3 of the way up the canvas. So if you mark about 1/3 there, that's where my horizon line is going to go. So I'm going to put a little bit lighter color right along that horizon line. That just gives the illusion of depth. And then just underneath that, I'm going to pick up a little bit darker. I don't want it too dark because our tree trunks are going to be black, so we don't want it too close to black. Just a little bit darker gray, probably about the same color as your darkest area up here. And lay that in horizontally. Make some horizontal streaks in it so that it's not perfectly gray. We want it to kind of look a little bit messy. This is sort of an impressionist painting, so you can leave your brush stroke showing and be very expressive with it. Just do some horizontal brush strokes there. I think that's about good. Let's let that dry and we'll come back. Okay, now I'm going to make some trees using a credit card. I've cut off part of it to use this part for some branches, but I'm going to use this part for the tree trunks themselves. And I'm going to mix up a little bit of white and black to make a gray color. And mix up a bit of this because I'm going to be using this in my trees as well. So probably 2 or 3 parts white to 1 part black. This is a value similar to our foreground value. Dip your credit card, the edge of your credit card, into the paint. This is where the fluid acrylics really help, because the heavy body acrylics don't work as well for this. And then I'm going to come up just a little bit underneath my horizon line and just do some quick vertical lines. These are going to be our background trees, so we don't want to get too fussy with them. We just want a few little lines of trees in the far distance. Bring them up. Doesn't really matter how far you want to bring them up. You just want them at least high enough so that they're about halfway up the canvas. If you don't have enough paint on your credit card there, it can skip, so you can go back in and just touch it up. I'm just trying to keep my lines vertical. That's good enough. All right, now I'm going to pick up some black. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and sponge in some of this gray color. I'm going to pick up gray and a little bit of white on my sponge. This is a sea sponge, and I'm just going to sponge in some random tree shapes. My tree line is a little bit up and down, doesn't really matter. Just want to keep my tree line about a little bit below my halfway mark, so just leave a little bit of this horizon line showing, and then the rest of this is going to be filled in with gray. And like I said, I'm just kind of varying the height of this foliage coming up with it. This is just going to barely show up underneath our trees, because our main trees are going to be starting about right here and be up in this upper area. This will just give it a little bit of an interest in our background. Okay. Now let's grab the black on our credit card, and we'll put in our black trees. So I think I'm going to do one main tree right here. Just try not to get your credit card too sideways. I'm using the bottom edge of it to kind of draw out that bottom of the tree a little bit to thicken it up. And I'll do another one right here. I'm coming down about halfway down our foreground with these tree trunks. Bring those nice and high. Remember, these aren't supposed to look perfect, so if you don't get them exactly clean, that's fine. That's kind of the fun of this project. So it doesn't have to be quite perfect. We're just doing some little fantasy trees here. Just using my credit card, pulling it a little bit to the side to thicken up the trunks down at the bottom there. I think that's good. Now I'm going to use my small credit card piece and do some little branches. Start it at the trunk and pull out with it. Oh. If you get a little problem area, we can kind of cover some of that up with the foliage. Just setting it down helps too. give a smaller line. Just making kind of Y shapes in my tree trunk. Most of this is going to be covered up by our foliage, but a little bit of it will show through. And our May tree is going to be a little bit bigger than the rest, so I want to give a little bit of special attention to these branches here. And I'm just making sure that I'm not mimicking my shapes too much so that they don't look too matchy-matchy. That'll look artificial. So I might do another branch down low on this one coming up. Just like that. I think that looks good. All right, now I'm going to grab my sponge again and pick up that black. And I'm going to sponge in all of my trees with the black. This is where I'll define them. So some of them I'll bring nice and high. These are going to be sort of narrow trees, except for our color one. I think I want our color one to be a little bit wider than the rest. You can leave a little bit of that undercolor showing through as well. So don't go too far down to cover up all the underneath colors. We'll leave a little bit of that showing through in places. So colored tree, and then I'm not overdoing it. I'm just trying to tap in a little bit of the black, but I'm letting a lot of that color show through still. Now I'm going to pick up some white and I'm going to highlight one side, and I think I'll highlight these sides. I'm just going to pick the highlight side of these trees and I'm going to put a little bit of a white highlight on each one of these. Just a little bit. Okay, that looks good. Very simple. We could leave it like that if we wanted to, but I think I'm going to put some color on this guy. So let's go ahead and dry off our canvas here, and then we'll add some color to him. Before we do the tree here, I want to go ahead and work on this bottom area here and add a few shadows and things to our trees. So I'm going to grab some white and a little bit of black and just mix those together with my small scraper. I'm going to come up underneath some of these trees and put some horizontal shadows and just scrape in side to side a little bit of shadow in our underneath our trees here. Just keep your scraping side to side. That'll give the illusion of depth and different planes of color, or different planes of distance there with your trees. So I'm just kind of setting it down at a slight angle and then scraping it, pressing down with my fingers so that it kind of presses that surface of the credit card down a little bit. But I only have the color on a very little bit of my credit card. I don't have a lot on here. So I'm just barely scraping off some color. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit more color and turn it and scrape it along this bottom edge here. Really scrape. If I keep it kind of at an angle when I set it down, I won't get like a straight line as much. So, and I've got white and black. I'm not really being too particular. Just picking up a little bit of each color. And come up under some of these trees and put some white. And just scrape it in there. This gives it a really unique look because it picks up the texture of the canvas. It almost looks like a palette knife effect. You could probably get a similar effect with a palette knife if you wanted to go kind of thicker with your paint. But I think I like this, and then you can use the edge of it to draw lines through your wet paint. Scrape through it. It's a really cool effect. Now, if I want to get really fancy, I can pick up a little bit of black and do some very, very light reflections. See that? I'm just kind of barely scraping from side to side just to get a little bit of that paint to come off, and that way it's kind of patchy. It looks like a reflection. Let's do some up here with some gray for these trees that are in the background too. We don't want to forget them. And if you lose your line where those trees started, you can always go back in with a little bit of white and just touch that up so that you can really see where those lines start and stop and where the reflection starts. Cool? Very simple. It's a really cool effect though. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Be sure to check out part 2 where I add color to our black and white treescape. Yellow, turquoise, and purple trees are shown in part 2 video, and the link is in the description. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.